So this is the recording number 53, I think. And for during this last week, or even during this couple of days, I didn't have time to prepare any materials, any information to describe in this video, because I was fully involved in writing some poems and some translations for the Russian songs. Well, in the end, I like the result, but the process itself keeps me busy all the time. I feel that my mind completely concentrates on finding the right rhyme, the right words, or rewriting the rhymes that have cool rhythm, but they do not show the right spirit of the song, the right effect. Yeah, like for example, I had this rhyme for a long time, like wait for me to come to you, tell you can tell the others few, it's more like a spell. Those who didn't okay, something like those tell the others okay, yeah, I remember now. Wait for me to come to you from the deepest hell. You can tell the chosen few. That was my that's my lucky spell. Like, wait for me to come to you from the deepest hell. You can tell the chosen few. That's my lucky spell. No, I need this rhyme, like to you, and like few, chosen few. But the idea was not very cool, because who are those chosen few? And in the original Russian poem, it was more about any people who didn't wait for him, and then they just when he saw that he returned, they just said that he was lucky. That was it. So I need something neutral for this line, and this those other few was not very cool, but the rhythm was cool, and I tried to find the same rhythm with other words, and I already said the other rhymes, like wait for me to come to you from the deepest hell. It was brilliant, from the deepest hell. And that's your lucky spell. Was not very bad, but it perfectly worked with hell, from the hell, your lucky spell. So when I completed this translation, my mind worked on this anyway, and I found the right rhyme, like wait for me to come to you from the deepest hell. That, from someone's point of view, was my lucky spell. And this is the perfect translation of this idea, because the first two rhymes described the fact that he returned from the hell, and other two rhymes, they gave, or in the present, they give the details for these events, like that from someone's point of view was my lucky spell, and it perfectly conveys the idea from the Russian poem, when some people who didn't wait for him, they just thought that he was lucky, and that, from someone's point of view, was my lucky spell. So yeah, this is the perfect translation within this particular verse. At least I can't find anything better without destroying the whole verse, and I don't want to spend more time on this particular poem because it was just for fun, and the fun that takes like the whole week of thinking at free time about the right rhyme, the right line, is not a fun anymore. So then I had some inspirations about translating one Russian song, and then I kind of started to work at two other translations, and yeah, it took all my free time. I didn't think about what interesting I can say in my current session, and I even kind of stopped working at my progress in English. Currently my progress in English consists of taking the Russian sentences, which kind of are the basic, with the basic verbs or words, and trying to retell them in English with my current vocabulary without going to the translations that were given by the author. The point of this activity is that I myself can't think about all the cases that I can translate into English, because usually these cases appear in my mind in the context of some situations, like when I talk to someone, let's say in Russian, and then somehow our talk goes in one particular direction, and then different memories come to my mind, and I surprise myself what I recall. Like, I didn't thought about this particular memory, fact, event or something for 10, for 15 years, and now I recall it very clearly. How did this stuff came to my mind? So in these situations, in this context, I can recall lots of different stuff, or when talking to different people, like to the dentists, to the programmers, let's say. But when I start to talk to myself in these videos, I'm not in these situations, so my mind can't recall just from the box, from the scratch, these ideas. I need the reminders for them. First, I need to recall them somehow by reading some programmer books that I read a long time ago in Russian, rereading them in Russian now, getting the inspiration, writing down some notes, and then using these notes to get into the mood, into the zone where I can start speaking about the particular idea. Well, with this translations of the poem, I didn't even watch much movies. Well, I got familiar with a couple of facts about movies, about the actors, and really I can talk about it because it's not very boring, it's not very scientific. So it's really fun facts. You can live. Well, actually, I lived without them, but knowing them makes my maybe understanding of the life in general bigger, vast. Yeah, like for example, this Spaceballs movie that I watched for the first time, but I failed somewhere at the middle of the movie. Yeah, but then I checked this guy in the glasses who played the version of Darth Vader, because somewhere I watched this guy, maybe of course in the movies, but really I couldn't recall where I know him from. So thanks to Wikipedia, I checked the movies where he played, and I recalled then in 1980s he was the main character in the movies like Dear I Shrinked Our Children, then I think Enlarged Our Children, and then Dear I Shrinked Ourselves. And I watched these movies in the beginning of 2000 when they were translated, when they were aired. I don't know, they translated on the TV. Is it the right term? Because in Russian there is this word transляция, and it originates from the Latin. So I think in English the translation or something can exist, like the word for the airing on the TV, but I only thought about this word as the translation from, let's say, Russian into English, from English into Russian. So I need to check this information. To check this information in the dictionary. Okay. Anyway, in the beginning of 2000, they aired these movies many times, and I watched them. They are quite cool comedies, but since then I never watched them. I didn't encounter them while surfing the internet for English movies to watch in English, after I learned to understand English by ear. Yeah, because this movie were from 1980s, and I watched, I'm not sure, I watched only a couple of movies in English from 1980s, like Back to the Future, maybe the first Terminator, the Star Wars. I think I watched, yeah, of course I watched all this stuff like Friday the 13th, Chainsaw Massacre, the first movies, the Hellraiser, all in English, because initially I practiced my listening English by watching horrors in English. The horrors usually have a very small amount of words, like help me and kill or something. So it's really easy to understand what they're talking about, even without understanding the words itself. It's not like in the first Iron Man, Tony Stark talked too much before being hit by this big bomb, and then changing into the Iron Man. Yeah, in the horror movies, you can almost understand the idea of the movie without understanding the words. So it was a cool starting point to get used to the words itself, and then I started to understand individual words, then the phrases, and then the whole sentences. Anyway, this movie is like a deer I shrinked, enlarged, and shrinked was the movies I watched in Russian 20 years ago, but I never recall them after that, never tried to watch them again, because they're too childish comedies for me. But I quite well, I recall this guy in the glasses from these movies quite well. Another movie where I recalled this guy as well was the Little Shop of Horrors, which is the movie of 1980s, and I think I watched this particular movie. I know that I watched it on the NTV channel at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, after I returned from school. I switched on the TV, and after some talk show, this movie started, because they always showed some movie between 1 and 3 hours in the afternoon. And because later I switched to different schools, where I spent all my free time till maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, because we had lots of additional lessons in physics and other stuff. So this event, when I came from school, could happen only until my 8th grade. Maybe it was in the 6th grade, maybe in the 4th. Well, anyway, it was before. Yeah, it was somewhere in 2000, 2001, 2002. Anyway, I remembered this movie quite well because of this big flower that usually ate flies. Fly eater flower. When it opened its mouth and then caught the flies. But in this horror comedy movie, this guy in the glasses, he fed to this flower, I think, the bad guys who tried to kill him or something. Yeah, I don't remember the plot. Maybe I didn't watch the whole movie, but I recall this quite well. And it is 20 years later. Wow. Anyway, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I encountered the original movie of 1950s, and I think I watched it from the beginning to the end, or maybe the end of the movie. Anyway, I remember that the guy kind of killed bad guys, and he fed them the bodies to the flowers in his shop. Then he killed this girl who didn't want to, this woman who didn't want to meet with him, and he fed her to the flowers as well. And there was no bodies because flowers ate them all. But when in the end police came to the shop and they started to search this shop for the bodies, these flowers started to bloom, and when they opened I don't know the word for this in English. yeah, I don't know, the buds, not buds, this like sphere stuff that is usually we consider to be the flower, yeah, and this sphere stuff, it can open its petals when the sun goes up, and then during the night this thing closes itself. So when the flowers started to bloom, they opened, and the core of these flowers resembled the faces of the people they ate. So the police understood that this guy, was the culprit. The murderer. He killed all these people. It was quite an interesting idea for the movie, and maybe I should rewatch at least the end of the movie, because it's really original. I don't know whether in the remake of 1980s they made the same plot, but this guy in the glasses from the Spaceballs movie, he played in this Little Shop of Horrors, and I remember him quite well. Well, an interesting fact, when I checked his filmography, I found out that he played Sigourney Weaver's husband in the 2 installments of Ghostbusters, when they fought against some devil in New York, and then against these pink slimes that controlled the Statue of the Liberty. And in both movies, this guy in the glasses played her husband, but I completely forgot his face. Like, I remember her, like Sigourney Weaver. I remember for this Ghostbuster Hunters, but even after recalling that he played there, I can't like imagine his face in this movie. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that I checked his biography, because he started to play in any movies since 1993, yeah, and I found out that he had a wife, and I think they are both Jews or Jewish people, Jews. Well, I need to work on my knowledge in nationalities. Anyway, so he had a wife. I think they loved each other quite much, and she gave birth to the daughter and the son. And after 5 years of their married life, she died. And this guy in the glasses, he quit his job as the actor, because being the actor, he needed to travel a lot to the places where the movies were shot, and he concentrated on raising his kids, who were less than 5 years old at that moment. I don't know how he earned the money to spend on his children, but he replaced his wife in her role of raising the children, and he never returned back to the big screen. That's why I didn't encounter him in any movies, in any comedies, and that's why I forgot about him for all this time. Yeah, that was quite an interesting fact, not very like groundbreaking for me, but yeah, quite unique story for the actor to behave this way, because I think the more usual way to deal with this problem could be to continue working, continue making movies, and earn money to raise his children, to hire some nanny, and to pay for her work, to pay for their education. Okay, that was about a week or two ago when I checked this. Okay, 2 weeks ago when I checked this biography, his biography, because of the Spaceballs. And another movie that I that I discovered for myself, and I was quite surprised, because I never heard about this movie, but this movie is really popular in America. So the movie, actually TV series, called The Boy Meets the World, and this is the coming of age TV series about the boy of 11 years old who studied at some school. He had an elder brother, and the parents, he had a friend and a girlfriend with whom he was at the same class, and there were the whole 7 seasons of this TV series. When they grew from 11 years old to 18 years old, and in the end they moved to New York to go to college to start their career. Well, I watched 2 episodes of this TV series from the 3rd season, and it was really cool. Well, it's not the TV series to train your English as I did with animes, for example, or Big Bang Theory, because in this TV series they talked too casually. They didn't use lots of words. The phrases were quite short, and there were lots of slangs, and lots of words, lots of phrases that could be understood only in the context. Like at the history lesson, the teacher who was the director of the school, he asked the friend of the main character what he was talking about, because this friend never listened to him. And the friend asked Roosevelt and his deal, and the teacher grabbed his hat, because it was the right answer. And then this friend guy commented that it was his answer for the last 2 years, so at some point he should hit the right target. Well, actually this particular phrase, Roosevelt and his deal, didn't have much for this movie, for this episode, and for the TV series in general, but I decided to check what it was, and it was this historical event in the American history after the Great Depression, when Roosevelt, we learned this in our history textbooks, but we called it somehow like new course, Roosevelt and his new course or something. But in America, for the native like language and the native events, it was called Roosevelt and his deal. I think that this is the event that I'm thinking about. Anyway, without context, just from the phrase that he said so casually, I couldn't got what was behind the Roosevelt, because for all the Americans who went through the school, they knew this topic because it was the part of the exams at the school, at the history. But for me it was a new thing, and I needed to get this particular, even with the absolutely perfect pronunciation, I didn't got what was about his deal. Yeah, just from the context, because I needed to know that it was the history class, it was the I know, something like 5th or 6th grade, and they studied this particular period of history. So I had the same experience with the friends. At some point I decided to give the friends some chance, and most of the time they talk about their everyday problems. They give each other short lines, and these lines are more conventional, more casual way of speaking without academic like stuff, and it's quite difficult to understand without the context. And the more important problem is that I can't learn lots of words from their conversations, comparing to the Big Bang theory, when they talked a lot in academic style, with all the vocabulary from the physics and other science that I understood quite well, just because I studied physics at school and at the university. It was my major, and the physical terms are quite universal because they derive from the Latin language. So, and the physical knowledge is the universal across the universities. So I understood quite well what he was talking about when he made Sheldon and Leonard made his jokes. Yeah, and in any case, I learned a lot about how these academic sentences, words, phrases sound. And in anime, I learned a lot about different stuff. Mostly it was the heroic stuff, but it was about fantasy, science fiction, and other thing. And it's completely different from the everyday style of Friends, or this boy meets the world. But I like this anime style more. Anyway, the idea is what? I had two ideas as I discovered that this TV series existed. The first idea was about, actually it was the second idea, but it's really short, so I'll talk about it right now. So this idea was about that Bill Skarsgård, who played this bad clown in the new remake of Stephen King's It. So Bill Skarsgård, or I don't know the right pronunciation of his name. So he played in this slasher movie that was released in 2023. Some deaf and mute boy who raised on some computer games, and somehow he got into the situation where he needed to kill and smash lots of bad guys. and they called this movie "The Boy Kills the World." Well, the movie was not very cool, and I had great expectations about it, and the reviews were quite low, so I checked just some moments, and really I didn't like them. The way they cut the trailer, and they showed the sequence of events. In this trailer, they created the different picture of the whole movie for me than it actually was. That's why, well, and the end, I didn't like the end in the terms of the skills. That's not very cool. But I wondered why they called this particular movie "The Boy Kills the World." And when I discovered the TV series, I understood that it was kind of the world play, the play of words, the game of words, word game, on the name "The Boy Meets the World." And the variation was "The Boy Kills the World," because the Americans who watched the TV during 90s, they knew this TV series quite well. And the first idea that I got from "The Boy Meets the World" is that in the TV series, in the first season, they were all 11 years old, and then they gradually grew up and became 18 years old boys and girls. And I had the instant association with the Harry Potter thing when he started to attend Hogwarts at the age of 11, and he had 7 years of lessons of education. Of course, Rowling didn't know that the Boy Meets the Girl series would continue for 7 years, because she described the idea behind Hogwarts in the first book that was published in 1994, I think. It was just a year after The Boy Meets the World started to air on the American TV. But this interesting connection between the two, that the TV series started with the 11 years old children, though actually they went to school maybe at the age of 7, so they were at the 5th grade at that moment. But for Harry Potter and Hogwarts, the idea was that the wizards started to go to school at 11 years old. Well, actually, it's quite strange, because what did they do until 11 years old? How could Ginny spend all her time in her house when she was quite adult at her age of 9, 10, without going to any school as the normal people do? Because in Japan, children start to go to school at the age of 5 years old, and the Japanese people think that the children of the age of 5 are quite adult to go to school, socialize, and do their homework and return back. But in the wizardry world, there is some disproportion. Yeah, that the people with the ability to cast spells can't start to socialize before they are 11 years old. Anyway, the association was quite cool, and the way I found this TV series is by checking Eli Roth first movie, Cabin Fever. I think this movie was the foundation for my favorite horror comedy, The Cabin in the Woods. And maybe it was the foundation for not actually, because in the movie Evil Dead, that was filmed in 1980s, the events happened in the lone cabin in the wood where the friends came to spend their holiday. So it's not so much of the invention, but I wanted to check Eli Roth Cabin in the Wood because it was the movie that I didn't watch and I never knew about it. Like, I didn't know any information about it, though I watched his Hostel and the second Hostel, and these were the first movies I watched in the genre of the horror, and you know, they have the individual place in my memory for this particular stuff. Anyway, the review estimates of this movie are quite low. Are quite low, yeah, for the Cabin Fever. So I didn't want to watch it. I just checked the plot, watched the screenshots from the movie on IMDb, and then I checked the fun facts about this Cabin in the Woods, and I found out that at some point some of the actors, obviously the guy who was painted with all this red blood, yeah, because he was in the process of shooting some scenes, he just wandered around the woods because it was his lunch break, and he encountered 37 girls who were camping somewhere in the woods, from because of their school summer activities. And first these girls screamed because they saw this guy who came out of the woods and who was kind of covered with blood, but then they recognized that he was that boy from the Boy Meets the World, and they chased him. They were the fans of this movie and this boy in particular, so they chased him till the place where they made the shooting. After that, he decided never to wander while he was in the process of the shooting any movie. And I decided to check what was that The Boy Meets the World and who was this particular guy. I think he was that elder brother of the main character. Maybe this elder brother was about 14 in the first season or 15. Yeah, and he was quite dumb, but he was really beautiful, and his appearance compensated his his lack of the wits. Yeah. So this way, through Eli Roth, his biography, his filmography, and through his movie The Cabin Fever, I discovered The Boy Meets the World TV series, and yeah, I had these associations with the Harry Potter and The Boy Kills the World. And another interesting thing, maybe the last interesting thing about this TV series, because I only watched 2 episodes, was from the 3rd season with its trailer, where some blonde girl tried to seduce the main character. Yeah. And I checked and found this particular episode, and I watched it. Yeah, it was after the main character started to date this Topanga girl. Yeah, because they were both 14 years old. And in this episode, Topanga was ill. She was sick, and she stayed at school or at home, and his friend told him that now, as he started to date a girlfriend, he has this scent over him, and other girls would try to become his girlfriends, because somehow it's easier for girls to try to get the hands on the boys who were in the relationships, than the boys who were not, because somehow psychologically or subconsciously these girls understood that if this girl already started dating, then he has something in him worth dating him, and because he has this thing, these girls should took him to themselves. Yeah. And for the guys who didn't date, well, these guys lacked this particular quality, and the girls were not interested in these guys. Anyway, after Topanga girl was sick and stayed at home, this blonde girl, who appeared only for this 1 episode, he tried to seduce the main character. He invited him to her home to party, but he believed that they would study the biology. Then in the end, she kissed him, but at that moment she threw him away. She threw him away out of her house because her father came, and her father didn't want her to invite any boys to his house. So with this, the relationship ended, and then Topanga became better. She came to some bar to some club, let's say club, where this boy with his friend spent the time, and this boy confessed to her that he kissed, or that blonde girl kissed him. Yeah. So that's all. Quite an interesting story. It's not much about any vocabulary, any pronunciation that I can learn from this movie, but it's quite neutral events, quite interesting, without any action, without any violence, without killing or other stuff, because without the relationships in general, as with the friends, because these guys are only 11 years old, then 14 years old. It's too early for them to be in the relationships because it was the 90s. And the last thing I wanted to say about this, the boy meets the world, there was this director who taught them the biology, and I checked this particular actor, and I found out that he had he has, even now he has his wife, and they are married for more than 50 years, and his wife played the mother of the twins in the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and David DeVito, the twins, in 88. Okay. And I thought it was a really cool thing that they had, that they were married for 50 years and they had two children. And then I discovered that her first child died 24 hours after he or she, it was born, and after that she could not have children, maybe. That's why they adopted two boys, and these two boys became like a designer and someone else, and they moved one to New York, and other one to Los Angeles. So, well, they are together for 50 years, but they could not have their own children, so they adopted the two children, and now these children went away because they had their own adult lives. So it's kind of strange that on one hand they have this long and quite happy life because both of them quite alive, quite healthy, but on the other hand they didn't have their own children during all these 50 years of living together. So, and I discovered this fact only from from checking Wikipedia for the actors in this movie. So this was the stories I wanted to talk about today, and they are quite interesting because they have no some scientific foundation, but they are quite cool to practice the way of speaking English. And that's all for today.